Isabel. I'm so glad you're joining me.
This is really fun.
This is really fun. I'm genuinely really psyched for this. I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Okay, so I obviously know what you do, but tell the world, what is it that you do?
Yeah, so I work as an academic coach. So I work with students and helping them build their executive functioning skills and just their confidence in themselves. And I also work with adults on productivity coaching. And a lot of the clients I work with have ADHD. And similar to the students, I support them with growing their executive functioning skills and just growing their confidence and just being happy with who they are and what they can do and feeling good about that.
I love that. What got you into this?
Yeah, I mean, in college, I studied hotel management. I loved hospitality.
Pivot.
Yeah, big pivot. But I learned a lot about running a business, and I really liked, when you're running hotels, you do a lot of checklists, like organization really helped. And I got to manage people and learn, I liked that part of mentoring employees. And, after doing that for about 10 years, I'd switched over to managing luxury apartment buildings. I just kind of was like, what's next? And I saw one of those hoarding shows on TV. Literally. But there was someone labeled a certified professional organizer, which I had never, growing up in upstate New York, I'd never heard of that. So I Googled it and realized people earned a living organizing people's homes. And, I had been saving to buy an apartment, and I thought, why not use that money to start a business? So I, spent 6 months making a business plan and figuring out if that's really what I wanted to do. And then I took the leap. And as I started organizing in people's homes, I ended up with a clientele that I would say is chronically disorganized. So I was going to their homes anywhere from once a week to once a month until their homes got organized. And at a certain point, your home is organized. And so we got into oh, can you help me with a mail system? Can you help me with taxes? And so that's where I went into a lot more research on learning more about ADHD and, brain differences to how to support them better. And I've also always liked working with kids. So I had studied, I'd heard someone, Leslie Giselle, speak on working with kids and getting organized. And I, reached out and actually hired Leslie to teach me about it. And that's how I got in. Yeah, that's how I got into the whole.
A coach with a coach.
Coach with a coach, yeah. So that's how I got into the academic coaching part of it. That did take a little bit, I felt like more education than the other piece because it's a little bit more systematic too with how you're supporting that young generation with growing those skills. Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. Okay, so we're talking about students really liking to work with kids. What ages are you typically working with when you're helping them with this academic coaching?
Today, the majority of the students I work with are college students. I feel like that's the most where I'm having parents reaching out and they're either something has gone a little awry in college or they're about to start college and the parents are like, I've been dragging them along through high school and I don't want them to be on their own. But I do work with high school students as well. Usually the high school students I end up working with are more high achieving, but the parents are really worried about quality of life and they're just overworked. So the grades are okay, but the rest of their life is really, really hard. And I also do skills coaching. So I can do that as young as 6th grade, starting to learn how to plan and that. But that's less of the coaching. That's more of learning the skills and then letting the kids try to implement it on their own.
Okay, so you said awry. If I'm a parent, I'm not. But if I was, what things would I be looking for to identify that things may be going awry and it could be related to organization, ADHD, and need academic coaching?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the students I work with and the parents will say is sometimes it's they did the homework, right? And they never handed it in or they never submitted it, right?
I'm having flashbacks.
Yes. So that's a really common one. Or having kids who just never do certain assignments. They're okay, this you've had this assignment. It might be in high school and it's a big research paper they've had 3 months to work on. They worked on it in class and it comes due and it turns out they've never done anything on it. And so it's often those kind of things. But we were talking about the high achieving student, it could be they're up super late. They're always exhausted. They're always stressed. And so that's the other kind of awry. The grades are okay, but life they just seem so unhappy all the time, even though they're doing all these things that they say make them happy.
Interesting. So it's they're checking a lot of the boxes that we would define as traditional success, but they just don't at the same time seem to have everything together in a way that's fluid and easy.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know, like, when you don't get enough sleep, like, it doesn't matter if you're doing something you would typically like. Like, it just everything feels so much harder. And, for a lot of students, like, high school is, like, that toughest time, right? You have this
Mhm.
long school day. You're, like, enjoying all these, like, you have the sports after school. If you're taking AP classes, you're up late, then doing homework. And then you have to wake up super early and do this again the next day. And then on the weekends, you want to hang out with your friends. So you're doing social stuff, and then, oh
Mhm.
my God, I have like 10 hours of homework, and it's like Sunday at like 2 p.m. already, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, it's crazy. Sometimes I think about those times and like how we would literally run on like 5 hours of sleep and I could still do more than I could ever do in a week now.
oh, exactly. I
Yeah.
know. I think even in my high school days, I'm like, I don't know how I did it. And then I like the kids I meet with today, I'm like, it's like so much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. So you talked about the high achievers. What about students who you help that aren't so high achieving? What my parents notice that gives them a sign, hey, that my kid needs help.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's like parents will often call and say, like, they're just not meeting their potential, right? Like, we know they're smart enough, but we're not like seeing those results. And that's where it really comes down to like the executive functioning skills have not caught up with like their, academics, right? So, and that's like you could be in theory like a really great writer, right? But like if you're really struggling in your executive functioning skills, you don't know how to like, and your teacher writes this assignment that makes no sense to you. So how do you make a plan from it? How do you find sources? Where do you start this assignment? How do you keep writing when you're getting super bored, right? And so here's these students.
Oh God, this is me.
Right. So like the parents are like, I know they can do this because I've seen it. But like to the student, it's actually so hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
Listen, as an ADHDer, I think undiagnosed. So let me just caveat, like, so hard.
Yeah.
I remember like being in high school and laying in front of the fireplace. That was like my favorite place to sit. And like, it was a Greek mythology assignment. And I loved Greek mythology. And so it was the first time I really read any of my assignments ever in my life, which is crazy to think of.
Yeah.
And being like, why can't I just do this? Like, it's due in the morning. I shouldn't have a high 80 in this class. I should, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's so easy to relate to. And I think changing like the phrasing of saying like, my student is a really good writer, but they're really struggling with writing. It's like, so writing is hard for them. I think we also have to change how we look at it. Like if they have trouble starting an assignment and sustaining it and planning it out, then writing is hard. I think instead of like as parents labeling it as, oh, they're a really good writer, like that would probably help the parents understand better what's going on.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And you said executive functioning skills. Can you define that?
Yeah, like they're the skills that really help us manage the boring administrative parts of our lives.
Ugh.
So we can see it in
I wish
school.
I could pay somebody to do those parts for me.
Yeah, well, and as an adult, like actually, like to a large degree, you can, which is kind of cool. But like as a kid in school, and this is why a lot of people with ADHD don't love school, is you can't pay someone, and it's so heavy on executive functioning skills. So, yeah, because executive functioning skills are your ability to plan, prioritize, see your time, initiate tasks, keep going when it gets boring, look back and learn from the past. Like that's an executive functioning skill. Often, clients with ADHD, it's like, why do I keep making the same mistake over and over again? It's because when you're ending up in that same situation, your brain isn't able to in the same way look back at the past. And
Wow.
yeah.
I didn't even know that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then the general organizing, I used to help people organize their homes or their offices or whatever, or kids' bedrooms. That is a skill. And so we see that like organizing your backpack is a key to like making sure that math homework gets into the homework folder and turned in, right? If it's not in the homework folder, can't get turned in.
And it seems so simple, but it's not.
No, it's not.
No. And I remember being like having moments in school where I was like, why can't I just do this? And I don't want to say like I just couldn't, because I think that takes away like some of the autonomy I had. But at the same time, like I just couldn't.
Yeah, it wasn't a skill you had learned yet. Like I think it's interesting because like if you think about riding a bike, like you're not born knowing how to ride a bike. And some kids learn how to ride a bike fast. Maybe because it's easier for them, or maybe because they're really excited to learn how to ride a bike. But other kids might find it scary or really hard. And it takes them a long time to ride a bike. And I think these skills are the same thing. Like if you find planning hard and not fun, it's going to take you longer, and two, you're not going to want to spend the time on it. So it kind of makes sense.
Well, it's like combine difficulty and boredom with someone who already has low dopamine levels and needs a ton of stimulation. I mean, it's a grand slam to not get anything done.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So if you're a parent, if I'm a, there's a parent listening to this and they're like, okay, I hear you, but what's like one thing, if you had one thing you would ask me to do for my kid to help them feel more motivated, what would you suggest?
Yeah. I think the best thing to do as a parent is to, in general, like ask open-ended questions instead of telling your kid what to do so that they start to have the space to figuring these things out on their own. And I think that can be like, coupled with, if you're trying to build habits, like we're talking about like getting the homework into the homework folder. Like I know like with my child, like that was the big goal of last year. Like the biggest thing was like, okay, when you're done with the homework, it goes in the homework folder and it gets in the backpack. And like understanding like you want these habits to become simple. So, it could be like coupling with you're asking open-ended questions, but if you're wanting them to make a bigger plan, it could start with, did you go into Google Classroom, if they're a high schooler, this is a common one, and see what assignments are due for the remainder of the week, getting them in the habit of just looking at what's coming up because these students don't even go in that tab sometimes. Like,
No.
So start really,
I don't
you
know
might
that
think
tab.
it's so small, but like start really small to you, but like that you get to build on that when that no longer feels hard. And over time, this makes an immense impact.
Yeah, no, it does. And I'm like living proof that like the systems can actually work in your life because my house was always a mess and I could work in a mess.
Yes.
And I just didn't bother me. And it's not like it wasn't dirty. It was just messy.
Yeah.
And then like, as I started to like learn these skills and implement them now, like I'm a little perturbed when my house is messy. And I know that it's a sign that I'm a little messy.
Yeah. Yeah. And how your environment looks around you often is like a sign that maybe your brain is feeling a little overwhelmed. Like that's actually a common thing with clients is like you can tell how they're feeling by a little bit how the environment's looking.
Yeah. Well, I learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a huge skill. What about a tip to combat procrastination?
Yeah. So I look at procrastination. Usually there's one of two reasons behind it. So the first reason might be like you really don't know what to do.
Right.
So it's not even like, oh, you don't know how to make a plan. It's like you got this assignment and like you don't understand any of it. And so if that's the reason you're procrastinating, you need to ask for help. So it would be either meeting with usually meeting with the teacher or the professor is the best way because you're getting accurate information.
Sure.
But it's okay to also ask your friend. Just make sure, like, if your friend is usually as confused as you, they may not be the best place to start.
My dad used to always say anytime I started a new school, like, I want you to find the smartest people you can find over the next 30 days and become their best friends. And if they're not smarter than you, don't hang out with them.
That is really good
not
advice.
that part. But like,
Yeah.
Nobody would always be like, go find somebody smarter than you. And he's so right.
Yeah. I mean, because that's putting you in the environment with people where it feels normal to like emulate their studies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was, I think, probably a form of body doubling in some sense. Like,
yes.
my friends are kind of organized and they're not messy like me. Like, maybe I might start to do that same thing. Like,
yeah, totally. And then the other form, if procrastination. So asking for help is if you don't know where to start. If you do know where to start, but it just feels super boring or I shouldn't have to do it. That's usually the other reason for procrastination. It's usually making an environmental change. So you need to get into an environment that's a little less comfortable often, or outside, at least outside of your bedroom. So it could be the library or a study lounge, but it could even be your kitchen table if you're living at home with your parents. And sometimes doing it with a friend. It doesn't even have to be the same assignment. If you hate math and your friend hates French, both go to the library together and you're not obviously working together, but you're sitting side by side, body doubling and getting done this thing you hate to do.
Richard calls that parallel play.
Oh yeah, parallel play is great.
It's a great word too. Yeah, but it's I think body doubling was the most life-changing thing for me.
Yeah, it is amazing.
And I make it when I'm building out my routine, my schedule for the week, because I can really only go about a week at a time. It just doesn't work for me to do more than that.
Yeah.
But when I do it, I make sure that I have allocated time for body doubling to do the tasks that I hate.
That's amazing. And I bet the impact on your life, you've gotten so much more
astronomical.
Yeah.
And also a lot of people don't know about that skill. I learned it from one of my other ADHD friends. And so when I bring it to my other ADHD friends, because most of my friends are creative, so they tend to have ADHD, they're like, whoa, I didn't realize that there was a science to why I like being around you so much. And I was like, well, welcome.
There is.
Yeah, it's awesome,
it's
right?
amazing. It is, yeah.
It's so fabulous. No, I'm sure you meet a lot of parents who are trying to intervene and help. But do you find that there's something that parents are doing sometimes that maybe is actually counterproductive?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think this depends on the parent. A lot of parents, like, they're just telling their kid they want to help. So they're literally just like telling them everything they should do. And then they're like, I just don't understand why now they haven't figured out how to do it on their own because I've been telling them. And like, it's really like, you can't just keep, like, you have to give them the space to figure it out and to have these small failures to really figure it out because your kids need a reason. Like if they've never felt like the consequence or like the real world consequence of like not turning the homework and then they lose it and then they have to do it again, which is a reason to turn it in right away, right? Like, because you're like the next day, you're like, did you turn it in? Did you turn it in? Like, they're not going to feel that. And the other thing is like, I think supporting like the little habits or like parents often like, even like supporting your kids in high school with like getting real jobs. Like that can help them learn these skills in an environment where it's not you telling them. They're going to learn a lot of executive functioning skills. So I think like letting your kids fly a little more will give them the ability to learn these skills that you want them to learn.
Yeah, I think you know what you said, the first thing about like just telling them what to do is so interesting because like you're saying, if the student, and I know I was like lacking the skill, it doesn't really matter if you tell me to turn in my homework. Like the student might need more help, like you said, like with the organizational system, having the backpack a certain way.
Right.
Because if they would have an easy time just doing the thing, they probably would already be doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And like, so as a parent, like being helpful and helping your student come up with a system of how to set up their backpack is immensely helpful. And then supporting them with when they come in the door. You know, in our house, like you come in the door and we set up our backpack for the next day right away. And at the start of the school year, you know, a new system and it's a little hard. But 2 months in, it's become pretty automatic, right? And then that's something that like your student has figured out eventually for themselves. Like it is no longer you telling them. So you giving them a system is so different than telling them what to do.
Yeah. And like teaching them how to do the system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think one of the real challenges I also find is like a lot of the clients, not every student or adult I have has ADHD, but a lot of them do. And ADHD is very genetic.
I was just going to ask, what if the parents are also, like, what if I have a little kid with ADHD? What am I supposed to do?
So this is like a really big challenge because I think a lot of the parents have similar challenges, but
yeah,
sometimes in different areas.
Yeah,
and they'll get so mad at the student for one thing. And then, you know, as a coach, like I do have conversations and we'll have like, in other areas, you can tell they're struggling too. And it's just so interesting to me how frustrated they are with sometimes with their kids. And I'm like, you know, and I see this is why it's hard to teach them. But it's also like, I also wish parents had sometimes just more empathy for their kids with how hard it is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. And I also think, you know, on that note too, it's like, it's the self-compassion too of like us talking about these things and me thinking about myself in high school and like, why didn't I ever just turn in assignments? And it's like, I don't know. It was just that hard. And it was
hard.
And I think for kids too, it's hard to explain to the parent that it's just, sometimes it's like you just freeze and you're like, you just can't do it. But then now that I'm an adult and I've worked with, I've worked with you and I've worked with other people and I'm learning these skills. I've learned a lot of them. I can catch it before I do it. If I do fall back into an old habit, I catch that pretty quickly. And then I'm able to sort of just move through those like weird ADHD feelings faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like there are techniques like when I work with students, like we give them like reading the room can be one of them when you're in school because it's you get in and you're excited and you're seeing your friends and like so like you had mentioned finding like the smart kids. So if there's a student you're sitting next to that you're friends with, like you're probably you might not remember to hand in your homework, but if you see them doing it, that might be your reminder too. So there are techniques to make it not as hard. And then, you know, if you learn this as a student, you can do this as an adult when you walk in the room. Like, you know, oh, what are the other people doing? This is an environment I'm not used to. I could do that too.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be just very subtle. And again, you might not think about that until someone tells you.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, duh. Especially because, like you said, a lot of your students they're smart. They're high achievers. They just need this tangible skill.
Yes. And I do want to point that out. Like having ADHD, there is like most of the time they are super smart, right? This is not any kind of judgment on how smart. Like parents often will say that to me, but they're really smart. It's like we know they're really smart.
Yeah,
right?
it's typical.
Executive functioning is a different part of the brain. Yeah.
So if you're working with a parent and their child has, you know, ADHD, they need academic coaching. What are if you can only teach them 2 skills, what are the 2 skills you would teach them to be the most successful throughout the rest of their life? Like, you're gone. After that, Sarah's out.
Yeah. I think the 2 biggest skills that I think make the biggest impact, we focus a lot on planning. So
That makes sense to me.
yeah. So I'm a big fan of this paper academic planner. I'll do a shout out to it was Leslie Giselle. She sold it, but Order Out of Chaos planner.
Order Out of Chaos.
Order Out of Chaos.
Sponsor. Sarah.
There's a link on my website. Not really sponsored, but it's like a grid. So on the left hand side, it has their classes, and then it has days a week on the top. And so we work together. We go through all their classes, and we break out like what assignments you have for each class, and like if it's like reading a textbook chapter, we might even break out like which days you're going to read which parts of the textbook chapter, because a lot of students with ADHD cannot sit down and read a whole chapter at one time. In fact, I didn't like reading one chapter at a whole time.
Oh,
like, it's
God,
hard.
No.
If they have a paper due in 2 weeks, like maybe this is the week we like start a little outline and then find our sources and then find quotes, and those go on different days. So we make this plan by class, and then we also plan out assignments. So if it's like a multi-step research paper, we're going to make a step-by-step plan, and we're going to put that like in a Google Doc that they could work on their assignment in. They're not going back and forth, right? It's all in one place. So one of those skills would definitely be planning. I think planning is like the key. The other is the ability to see their time. So the strategy we often use is an electronic calendar, and we color code like for students.
Yes. Yeah. That makes so much sense to me too.
Yeah.
That was a game changer for me.
It really is. And we put the classes on, they repeat, so they're not putting them every week.
Yep.
We put, for the start of the school year, we put the room numbers so they're not getting lost.
That's awesome. That's so smart. I used to put my schedule as the background on my phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea too.
Yeah.
And then depending on the students, we make sure like their extracurriculars are in there. Their like office hours, if there's like a class they really like want to be going once a week, like we'll keep that on there. And so that lets them also see like what time is taken up and what time they have available. And like depending on your student and how distracted they get, like some students will put lunch on there because they forget to eat. And then guess what? When you don't eat lunch, you can't focus on that next class. And so the ability to really see their time and make time feel more concrete would be the other skill.
That's amazing. And do you find that, because you've been doing this a while now, right?
Yeah.
How many years?
The business is going to be 10 years in March.
Okay. So do you find that students who did concentrate on these tasks in high school, middle school, or college are more successful now as adults?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the coolest part, one of the things I've noticed is the students that I worked with for a year or longer in high school, I've never coached a single one of them in college. Like, yet.
Shut up.
Like they in that supportive environment.
Because they learned is what you're saying, right?
Parents felt like they were home, but they were really able to let go in a supportive environment. And I've followed up with all of those students, and they all are doing really well in college.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the coolest things. I will say with the college students, like it has, like, yes, like it is the coolest thing to see how these skills follow them. I will say, like, when students are trying to learn this on their own with everything else, right? Like laundry and like being able to stay up as late as they want and like do whatever they want. It sometimes takes a little longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when they get in their first jobs, they like take those planning skills and that time. And often they'll be like, I was telling like the other, like my new other coworkers, like how to do this stuff. And they're like so proud. Like they know how.
Yeah, that is cool. So you're kind of saying here, like, intervention at any time is great, but earlier intervention is even better.
Yes. And I think like the key part for like, I don't know that it would matter if it's college versus high school, but I think the key difference, less than timing, is like the supportive environment.
Like, are you living at home or not?
Yeah. Because like when there's so many different skills or
Right.
like things kids have to be doing when they go away to college that we take for granted. Like, I mean, you're talking about how to support kids prior to going to college. Like, let them do their own laundry for like 2 years. Like, let them figure it out before you throw them that into the equation. Let them cook some dinner and do
have
some
kids with
grocery
pitchforks
shopping.
who are hearing this in the background.
Yeah, I mean, probably, maybe. But like this stuff is hard too. And so like that takes up brain space for them those first few years of college. So if this is like they're learning that in addition to all this like school stuff, like this is why they're like it's taken longer.
Yeah, I remember being in college and like everybody saying like one day admitting like which tasks they like didn't know how to do, and somebody being like, okay, I'll teach you laundry. Okay, I'll teach you this. And I was like, how do none of you know how to do laundry? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. I remember like my freshman year of college, like the first time I went down to do laundry, and some boy, and this was Cornell, everybody.
She said, I went to an Ivy League school.
And he like dyed all his clothes blue. I kid you not. Or like I was like, why didn't you just use cold water? Like
hilarious.
Literally everything.
But
was
also
blue.
just proof again, right? That like your IQ
He was smart,
is not
but he
right. Has nothing
didn't
to
know.
right. And there's so many different ways too of being smart, which I'm sure you identify in your students. Why do you think that social emotional learning learning is so important today. Like this, to invest in this.
Yeah. And I would say social emotional learning. I know I'm an academic coach here, but like I would say it's even more important than the academics.
Do you want to actually define social emotional learning for us?
Yeah. So I will separate them out. Like social, I would think of it as social skills. And we know like the ability to connect with other people, like feel connected, not feel lonely, is so
Huge.
connected to happiness in life. And I do think this is something that for a lot of, I'll say people in general, like COVID, that time of isolation, this really set people back, but it really set back our students because they had to like transform it a little bit and a lot more things were online. And that is so different than going and connecting in person. And so a lot of students have been struggling with making those connections. And so the loneliness is like really, really huge. Like I have a lot of students who go to college and like literally weren't eating with anyone, like any meals. I'd be like, could we eat with people one meal a day? And, as they start doing that, they're just so much happier.
Of course they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So like learning social skills. And this is something that can be taught. We like take it for granted. But like thinking about what does someone else want? Like what would someone else want to talk about? What would someone else want to do? Let's try to do that together. Like helping kids like get a concrete way to like learn these skills can really help them feel so much happier and connected. And I will say when you're at school, if you're feeling isolated and you're worried about like the social stuff, you can't focus on the education too. So then kids' education falls further behind. The emotional learning is like, I look at that as like, we think of like regulation. And so like, are you in your thinking brain or are you in your fight or flight brain, right? And so we really only learn well when we're in our thinking brain. So that ability to like frustration tolerance is a huge thing. A lot of the students I work with have low frustration tolerance. And so once they start to get frustrated, which it might not take much, they're out of that thinking brain. And then that assignment is so much harder.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that is another thing is to teach like how you can like widen your window of tolerance and grow that. And then that helps kids stay in their thinking brain more. And that makes everything easier.
Oh my gosh. I literally like I'm, from driving, right, to engaging with others to because also who's not going to go to a job and be like angry one day and get frustrated?
Of course,
right.
We all get angry. These are emotions are normal.
Right, right. It's just like you said, the actual tangible skills to be like, whoa, I'm feeling like at a 10 and like that a 10 is not where I need to be. Like, how can I get back down to a 4?
Yeah.
And you can teach kids that.
You can. And even like teaching the part of like the feeling is normal and what like action you take out of that feeling, you can make different choices. Because sometimes like if you have this huge feeling, but like you don't take an action that's detrimental, it's easier for you to come back down and nobody around you is bothered by it. But if you have an action that like makes the other people around you really upset, that also makes it harder for you to regulate again too.
Yeah, totally. And that makes sense. And so this is part of what you teach students?
Yeah, like we work at, I wouldn't say it's like the main part. I do often with like students I work with, like a lot of them may have therapists that will work. I can work together with.
Oh,
if
can
releases
you?
are assigned. Yeah,
wow.
absolutely.
Okay, that's great to know. Yeah, that's cool.
But I will say, like as a lot of people know me as a foster parent, I've learned a lot more about this. So in a very basic sense, like asking how students are feeling and like talking about like concrete like ways, like did you go to the gym today? Like sometimes it's really concrete ways that can help them emotionally regulate better with like health and sleep and that stuff. Yeah.
Wow. So as an academic coach, what do you find is the number one reasons that a student might be lying?
Yeah, I mean it's so funny. Like parents get so frustrated, but like the majority of the time they just don't want to get in trouble, right? And so I think as a parent, when I'm talking to parents, like if you feel like your child's lying a lot, I think like kind of looking inside and seeing like and how can you open up more conversations with your kid so that they feel more comfortable telling you about the difficult thing and that it will be a conversation as opposed to them getting in trouble. And that takes time to change. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Do you feel like you're seeing students, like there's a lot of conversation around this, like more stressed and more anxious? And if so, why?
Yeah, I do feel like students are more stressed and more anxious. And I mean, I think part of it is like coming out of COVID. I think that really that social isolation and stuff had an impact. But I also think like I really am not the biggest fan of social media. I know you're so amazing with social media.
No, that's okay.
But like especially with
it's
kids,
different for a kid brain too.
It's so different with kids' brain, and we know social media is made to be addictive. So I think it increases like the amount of comparison that's happening with kids. It creates this whole other environment, and I think like the more we can like limit kids time on social media and those kind of spaces, the more time they have doing things that like grow connection and like physical activity and stuff too. And so I feel like part of this increased stress and stuff is kids like aren't, like we say this, like they're not outside playing or just like hanging out with friends. Like often they're like just Snapchatting each other or whatever instead of like doing things together. And I think part of it's the social media itself. And I think part of it's like the lack of time doing the type of activities we used to do. And now it's like being taken over by these like techie stuff. Yeah.
So are you a fan of parental controls then?
It's a mixed bag. In general, I would say with students, I am a fan of parental controls. I also think it's really important, though, to educate your kids on the why of it because we do know, especially with certain kids, like they're going to find workrounds. So like the reason why you don't want them in chat rooms, like this is what might happen. Like people may pretend to be your age and they're not. And, you know, and they're trying to take advantage. And like, so it's important to educate kids. The other thing I will say where I'm not a fan, like if your kid is like a junior or a senior in high school and your plan for them is to go to a 4-year school on their own the next year, like at that point, like either you need to feel comfortable backing off from the parental controls and seeing how that goes in a supportive environment. Or if you feel like you need to keep them there for them to graduate, they're not really ready to go on their own. Then they probably need a transition year at a community college while you figure that out. Because it doesn't just magically get better when they go away.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And it's such like a new thing that parents are facing in a way that like other parents haven't.
Yes.
Do you have like, okay, so the kid's like a big phone kid wants to be on there, like an app or an account that you recommend that you're okay with kids using more?
Not really. Like honestly, like the big thing when we work with students, we come up with like what. So you often it's like when you're doing the work, like can you put your phone across the room? Can you put it somewhere else? Like and this is where you need buy-in as a coach, right? You know, like they like, do you not want to do your math homework for 3 hours? Like if you focus, you might be able to do it in 30 minutes, but when you keep getting distracted.
Oh, totally. Right.
So sometimes later, like usually after you work together, you get buy-in on it. But we'll also talk about like which apps like YouTube or TikTok might be one you cannot open up for a 10-minute break, right? But maybe something else like you can open up for a 10-minute break. And so figuring out like I have students where often they're like, I will not play video games till I'm done with my schoolwork because I never go back to my schoolwork, right? So I think it's more conversations with kids, just like with adults, like what can you really do and get off of and what you can't. And this is like with maturity as kids grow up, right? And supporting them and like figuring out what really works for them versus like the control part as a parent.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, you want to eventually teach them to be able to live on their own. So they need to build these skills.
But they're super addictive. We have to recognize that these companies who are controlling them are making them super addictive, especially to teenage brains. So,
yeah, they're addictive to us.
Exactly. So, like, I think we have to be realistic with what your student can and cannot manage on their own.
Definitely. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, what would you say is the best way for a student to build a new habit or structure in their day?
Yeah. So whenever we come with new habits, we try to habit stack. So we'll decide on whatever the habit is. And if we can connect it to something that's already happening, that makes it easier.
I've heard about this and I like it.
Yeah. So like, it's like a silly one, but like if you're already brushing every day and you like, it's easier to kind of add flossing to it. Because it gets combined.
I knew you were going to use this one. That's everyone's favorite ADHD one. Like, you already brush your teeth. You could totally wash your face.
Yeah, but we might add to it, like, we know what time it is, so we'll set an alarm on the phone that's labeled by day of week to remind them for a while until it really becomes connected. We always keep it really small. Like, we don't try to make, like, for a student who's never done homework outside of their room, I'll give that if we're trying to build a habit. It might be, and they're really nervous about going to the library. It might be just to go to the library and stay there for 5 minutes and come back and do that every day for 2 weeks. And sometimes that's all that will happen. Sometimes they'll actually start doing work there. But then after that, you'll grow with like, okay, we're going to stay for 15 minutes and we're going to actually open one easy assignment and work on it there. And it kind of breaks it out to like getting the stressful part out of it. And then they actually get into the work and the environment no longer feels stressful. So that it's kind of a comment of like, that's a habit, but it's also putting more structure in. So often that the structure gets built around how can you add a little bit of a new habit. But the thing is with coaching, you're getting buy-in. You're like, what do you want to do? Like, what habits like would you like to add first and would be the most helpful? What kind of structure is going to work for you? Like maybe they hate the library, but a lot of students that are engineers and they like working in the engineering, building. And that's
fine.
Great.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You just want them out of their bedrooms, basically.
Yeah. I actually have a student right now who is really great about working outside their room, but sometimes they don't walk all the way to the library, and the study rooms in their dorm are not great. But there's a dorm next door they have access to. And we're like, let's just go there, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's just finding out what's going to work for that particular student.
No, that totally makes sense. What is the best way to teach a student to advocate for themselves?
Yeah, I think it's supporting them in taking those small steps towards it. So the big ways, like, I think I help, like, really help students advocate for themselves, but, like, don't have to feel so big, is like going and talking to a teacher is a big one. Or it could be sending an email and asking for help. So, like, literally, like, the support that comes to make it less hard is, like, at the beginning, if we want the student to email the teacher, like, you just literally help them write the email. But as time goes on, right, like, very quickly you'll be like, okay, like, what subject do you think you should put? And before you know it, they're like, oh, I emailed my teacher because I wasn't sure when that quiz was, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So
That is amazing.
it's like, often it's not that they don't want to advocate themselves, it's that they're intimidated by the process.
Right.
And the same, like, if it's office hours and they're struggling with going, we'll help them. Well, first, we'll put the time on their calendar and we'll come up with a question to ask together. Because often they just don't know what to say and they think they're going to look dumb, right?
Right.
And so that usually it's really helping them take the first step, and then it really gets so much easier from there.
And so I think a lot of what you're saying, too, is it's like these small little steps and habits, right, repeated over time that make a larger impact and change.
Exactly. It's a huge difference. I think we, like, often try to jump in with, like, 2 feet and we try to make way too much change, and that just falls off. But these little habits over time, like, you're going to look back and be like, I can't even believe where I was 2 years ago.
No, and I see that a lot in my own life, too. Like, you know, when I start to meet with a coach who will say, like, so if we were talking fitness, for example, and they were like, okay, 5 days in the gym, I'd be like, absolutely not. Like, I know how my brain works.
Yeah.
You have to give me one small thing.
Yeah.
And I need to do that thing for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And then it's good.
Yeah.
And then you got to give me one more thing and then a couple weeks and it's good. But, like, I know, and I've learned with my ADHD that it's so crucial for me to just slowly add things on. And then once I've got it, I can tackle something else. But until I have that one thing down, I probably shouldn't try two.
Yeah, exactly.
And not everybody's just like me, obviously, but I definitely see that works.
I think in that way, almost everybody is actually is like you.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I think, like, as an overachiever, that was always hard for me. I didn't want to do it that way. You're telling me I can't just fix all of this overnight? That never works for me. Some people can.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. No, I would say most people can't in a sustainable way. Like, maybe they can because it's, like, a really stressful week or two, but then it falls off. It falls off the second, like, then they get sick because they're too tired, and then those habits never come back. So you're doing it in a really sustainable way, and that's what the coaching's all about. Yeah. It's sustainable, real change.
Right. What's an app that you might recommend for parents to help their students?
Yeah. So I think this is probably more for college students, but there's a lot of colleges. So a lot of students will get, like, an accommodation where they could get note taking. And now a lot of the schools are actually recommending these apps that will record the lecture, they transcribes it, and then it could turn it into, like, the regular notes, an outline, make a study guide, question and answer from it. So for a lot, even, like, if your student doesn't have ADHD, like, it's hard to sometimes pay attention and write everything, even though writing helps to get in your brain. So I think these apps have a huge benefit, and the fact I'm really, like, happy that a lot of the colleges are doing this, because the other thing is it takes an accommodation and lets the student take ownership of it, which is, I think, all really great. Like, when people feel in charge of things for themselves, they feel like, instead of, like, oh, I need this accommodation, it's like, oh, I'm taking care of it for myself.
Yeah.
So I love it. I think the name of the app that a lot of them are using is Genio, but it might have just changed their name. But there's a bunch of them that can listen and transcribe, and reach out to me if you want me to get the exact name.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
I think we've done a great job going over everything. I think, the biggest, like, for me, the biggest piece of, like, the academic coaching is it's really teaching these skills that set you up for success for the rest of your life. And it's like, it's not change that happens overnight, but seeing these small little changes, like, build and build and build, it's incredible what could happen when you have that consistent change. And it's so exciting to see these students, like, grow up and mature and just believe in themselves. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. The one other question I thought of while we were talking about this is, like, what would you say to parents who say, no, 5 minutes a day in the library to build a skill? No, my kid they're drowning, they're failing, we need fast change, or something's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I get, like, a lot of calls from parents like that, and they just want it, and they want it now. And I often say, like, how many years has this not been working? Like, what you've already tried? And so if that was going to work, it would have already worked. And so I think when we need to try something different and we need to try something that your student has buy-in to. And often like I think parents often look back and, they're like, I figured this out in my day. And I think it's a different environment today. And I think a lot of parents that have given their kids a lot of cushions in their life. And they live a very different lifestyle, right? These parents had to work their way up and they felt that kind of different pressure of like, if they want to eat, like they have to do these classes and they have to buy their own food, right? And then after college, like whatever they make, that's what they live off of. And their kids don't have that same motivation. Like they don't have any of those worries. And this is kind of hard for them. So like it is you've to the benefit of your kids, giving them a different world, but they don't have that piece of it.
Yeah.
So it is different.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay, so everything we just talked about, I want you to think about you, like little Sarah, back in school, middle school, high school. What advice would you have given to her knowing everything that you know now?
Yeah, I think it's two-pronged. I think I've learned a lot of these study skills that make it a lot easier. Like, I think like I was someone who always felt you had to do everything, and I always had to be really thorough and really organized. And like now what I teach the students is like, take like a practice exam, see what you know, what you don't know, and just focus on what you didn't know. Like you don't have to go over everything. And I wish I'd known that when I was younger, but I also wish I had been less focused on grades and getting into the right school and been more focused on like learning, which I do try to work on the students, like taking classes that are interesting and you care about the content. And like if you get a B, you get a B. And I think that's also what I try to promote in the coaching, because I do wonder like, what cool things would I have learned in college if I had been less worried about grades that could have like changed my career path? Yeah.
I think that's so interesting that you say that, because I have the opposite. Like we should have been friends when we were young, because I could have helped you chill out.
It would have
and you could have helped me handle my homework. But I always wonder like if I had the coaching that you provide and if somebody had recognized the ADHD in me. I actually had one math teacher one time tell me that because I understood all the material, but I kept getting like low 80s on the tests, which didn't really make any sense. But it was because I was like going so fast that I was flipping letters.
Oh, yeah.
So the entire equation would be right, but technically the answer would be wrong. Or I would just flip a letter somewhere in the equation. And she had said to me, like, you might benefit from accommodations because you stay after class and you know everything. And I got upset with her. And I actually should probably write her a letter. But not like crazy upset, but I was like, no, like I'm not stupid. I don't need an accommodation. And that's not what it is.
That's
like,
not at all.
but she was the only person who ever like said that and saw it in me.
Yeah.
And I always think if I had these skills, like look what I did without them. What could I have done? Like what grades could I have gotten that would have got me into an even more incredible school had I had these skills?
Yeah. And I think on that note, what's so interesting is like I will start coaching a student who is literally on academic probation and failing out. And like when I started this, I imagined like, we talk about like slow progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like the grades would slowly increase. And the most fascinating thing is like students go from failing to like A's and B's. Because it isn't like once you start doing the work and getting the skills.
Yeah, it's
like,
literally just doing the things on time, right?
Yeah,
mostly
like, the grades like follow, and then the skills just skyrocket. Like once you like are writing more, your ability to write grows so much. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also I'm sure the relationships you teach them to build with their professors impacts their grade too, because the professor 100%. Now understands where they're coming from and can support them better in class. And
and they give you the benefit of the doubt, like when you're on the cusp, which we talk about a lot. Like if you go to office hours, like if there's something that's on the edge, like if you've asked for help ahead of time instead of waited till you failed, like that's a big difference in the mind of the professor.
Oh yeah, one time I had a professor, like I sucked at science. We had to take science in college, and it was a huge class, so I couldn't pay attention, and it was and I kept going back and back and back. And I went to the last office hours before the final exam. And I said, I still don't understand this class. And here's everything I'm doing to try. And she walked me through subject by subject, each one, and just helped me understand the overarching version of what was going to be on the exam. I think I got a 99. And I had been almost like bombing this class.
Yes.
But because I built a relationship with her, she was like, okay, if you can leave my office understanding. Because she was like, I'm not trying to have you guys fail this exam. I know none of you are science kids. You just have to take this. So like, let's understand. And she would not skip a subject until I understood.
And how good did you feel about yourself because you
Oh
actually
my God.
did well on
I was
it.
taking this exam and I was looking around at everybody going, ha-ha.
Right. And that's what we want in students.
I mean, it was
like,
so
proud.
cool. I remember skipping, like literally skipping through campus and calling my family and being like, I got a 99 in a science exam. Like, who's that girl? Like, I was
Yeah.
it was such a good feeling. And it's like, but yeah, if nobody had taught me
you would
to
have
go
thought,
build that relationship.
Right. You would have thought you were dumb.
Well,
like,
she might have thought I was dumb or just didn't care. But like
Yeah.
when I just openly said to her, like, I'm really trying and I'm really failing and I feel embarrassed, she couldn't have been like kinder to me.
so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great professor.
And listen, not everybody's like that, but
No, but I would say more often than not, they do want to help. Like professors
Absolutely.
do this because they enjoy the subject matter and they enjoy teaching.
yeah, it's not like
Otherwise,
it's $1 million career.
It is not, right? Or they can do more research. If they really don't like teaching, often they have other options.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that vulnerability piece is so key.
It is. And it's so hard. It's hard for adults, it's hard for kids. But I mean, the key is like you can go to office hours without having any questions. I say this to students all the time and just listen to what the other students are asking and you will learn so much too.
Mhm.
So just showing up goes so far.
Yeah, and building that relationship so that when and if you do struggle,
Yeah.
it's not the first time either that you're meeting with the professor. So you also do feel more comfortable than when you have a question or something is going on.
And that's actually a big strategy. Like a number of the students we have in the first week of classes, they will go and meet every professor before there has been anything that's gone wrong because they know if they already have a relationship, it's not so hard to go and see them when something happens.
Mhm.
But they've learned like if they've not talked to the professor and then they like had a bad exam or something, they just feel so embarrassed about going. So that's a strategy we put in place so they don't have to have that will never happen because they've already met the professor.
Cool, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.